What changed last year is that we did a new assessment and incorporated some new information on a couple of biological processes in the population. Essentially, it told us that these fish tend not to grow as big as we had previously thought. And it told us that they mature at a slightly younger age than we previously thought. And so with this new information, and when we put that into the assessment, it in combination with everything else that goes into the assessment, was indicating to us that bigeye tuna were not quite as depleted as the previous assessments had indicated, and were not in such a bad shape as we had previously estimated. We had previously been using information on growth from the Eastern Pacific, where they had done specific studies looking at the otoliths, the ear bones of fish that we use to count rings, much the same way as people count the rings in trees to estimate their age. But this new growth work was indicating fairly clearly that those fish never actually grow that big anyway. And so the models were then able to better explain the size characteristics of the population without them being so heavily depleted and exploited as well. The other side of the picture was the reproductive biology, and so we conducted work on that as well, and that also had an incremental effect on the assessment. We're always on the lookout for ways in which we can improve our estimates of other things like stock structure. How do these fish distribute themselves over long periods of time? Are there local aggregations? Do fish come back to the same place to reproduce? Do we need to take special actions to protect different genetic components of the stock? There's all sorts of areas in which we could usefully use more information and make these models more biologically realistic, and we'll keep doing that over time. The scientific committee recommended that we go and collect additional otoliths, additional samples just to fine-tune those results, to make absolutely certain that we're seeing what we think we're seeing. And so we got some funding from the Commission to do that, to extend the growth work, collect more samples, have them analysed, and that work is being done through CSIRO in Hobart. I hope people understand is that fishery stock assessment is not an exact science. It is subject to uncertainties. We don't, and probably never will, understand the biology of these animals as in a detailed way that we would like. So there will always be uncertainty, and I think the process that occurred this time, where we identified a source of uncertainty, we conducted the research to try and deal with that, and we then incorporated that new information into the assessment. Yes, it resulted in a pretty substantial change, but I think we just have to live with that, and that's the sort of scientific process that I think works pretty well for fisheries.